What if the barrier between you and reality isn't as solid as philosophers have claimed? What if that wall, the one that seems to separate your mind from the world, simply dissolves when you look at it closely enough? Tonight, let's complete a journey we began. Let's find the path through the maze of modern philosophy, right to the gateway of spiritual knowledge. In our past explorations, we traced how Western thought arrived at a truly startling conclusion. Thinkers like Kant and Schopenhauer taught that everything we experience is just our own mental picture. The world around us, the stars above, even our own bodies, all of it exists only in our consciousness. We are sealed inside ourselves, they said. We can never reach the thing in itself. We can never truly know what exists beyond our own perceptions. But Rudolf Steiner didn't see these philosophies as enemies to be defeated. He saw them as stages on a journey, as partial truths pointing towards something much, much greater. The theosophist, he would say, doesn't refute. The theosophist completes. Consider how Schopenhauer tried to escape the very prison he had built. He said, "Everything around me might be a mental image, a picture in my head. There's one thing I know directly, without any doubt, my own will. When I act, when I strive for something, when I desire, I experience something real. I am will, and if I am will, then maybe everything else is also will, just expressing itself through the appearance of these mental images." This was Schopenhauer's attempt to find solid ground. He called his philosophy the world as will and representation. But there's a problem, a fatal contradiction hiding right at the heart of his system. How do I know that I have will? How do I know that I even exist at all? Well, I know it the same way I know anything else, through perception, through experience, through mental images. When I look at my own hand, I see a mental image. When I feel my body move, I feel sensations that are themselves mental images. Even my sense of having a will, of being a self, this too arises in my consciousness as a kind of perception. If we're going to be truly consistent, we have to admit that even our knowledge of ourselves is just another mental image. The self that was supposed to be the solid foundation turns out to be floating in the same sea of appearances as everything else. This is what mathematicians call a reductio ad absurdum. The argument destroys itself. We're left with nothing solid, just images dreaming of other images, with no ground beneath them. So we must look elsewhere. Here is the key question that most philosophers have missed. How is it even possible for us to make judgments about knowledge? Think about what happens when a philosopher sits down to write about the relationship between the mind and the world. They are acting as a judge. They're deciding what is real and what is illusion, what we can know and what we can't. But think about a courtroom. The prosecutor argues one side, the defense argues the other. Neither of them can give an objective verdict. Only the judge, who stands above both parties, can weigh the evidence fairly. When Kant sat at his desk and reasoned about the limits of human knowledge, he was acting as if his thinking could stand above both himself and the world. He was claiming the position of the judge. But where did this authority come from? If all we have are our own subjective mental images, how can any judgment ever be objective? The answer reveals something profound. When you think a true thought, something happens that transcends your personal, individual ego. Consider this. 2 times 2 equals 4. This isn't true just because you believe it. It's not true only inside your consciousness. It would be true whether you existed or not. It would be true for any thinking being anywhere in the universe. When you grasp this truth, you aren't creating it. You are recognizing something that exists independently of you. The same applies to all genuine knowledge. When the astronomer Kepler discovered that planets move in elliptical orbits, he didn't invent that fact. He recognized something that was true long before he was born and will remain true long after he is gone. Kepler himself understood this. He wrote that his discovery was a thought that had waited for ages before it could finally appear in a human mind. He didn't see himself as the creator of this knowledge, but as the stage on which a cosmic truth became conscious of itself. This points directly to the resolution of the entire problem. Your thinking, when it reaches for truth, is not merely subjective. It participates in something universal, something that transcends your individual self. There is a spirit that flows through all things, a universal intelligence that is the very foundation of the cosmos. And your mind is not separate from this spirit. Your mind is a spark of it, an outflow, a reflection. The ancient philosophers understood this. Before Kant clouded the vision of the West, the greatest minds knew that the essence of things is spirit, and that our own spirits are one with it. Let's return to the image of a seal and its impression in wax. Kant and Schopenhauer argued that when a seal presses into wax, nothing of the seal's actual substance enters the wax. Only an impression is made. The seal itself, the thing in itself, remains forever outside. And this is true if we think only of matter. The physical material of the seal doesn't transfer. But what about the name engraved on the seal? What about the meaning, the form, the spiritual content? That does transfer perfectly. Completely, the spirit crosses the boundary that matter cannot cross. This is the key that unlocks the prison of modern philosophy. Yes, Kant was partly right. The material substance of things doesn't enter our minds. We don't absorb the physical stuff of the world, but the spirit of things does enter. Why? Because we are spirit. Because the barrier that seems to separate us from reality is a barrier only for matter, not for mind. We are not outside the world, looking in through a tiny window of perception. We are inside the world spirit. We have never left it. We are expressions of it. When truth knocks at the door of our senses, it is not a stranger. It is the same spirit recognizing itself. It's the universal intelligence becoming conscious of itself through the particular form of a human mind. This is why genuine knowledge is possible. This is why we can know not only appearances, but essences. This is why spiritual experience is not some fantasy, but the deepest and most profound form of knowing. The world spirit lives in all things, and because we are sparks of that same spirit, we can recognize it wherever we meet it. In the stars, in the stones, in the eyes of other beings, and in the very depths of our own souls. Steiner spent years studying the philosophers who seemed to block the path to spiritual knowledge. He edited the complete works of Schopenhauer. He mastered Kant. He understood them better than they understood themselves. And he found that when you truly complete their thoughts, when you follow their logic all the way to its genuine conclusion, you don't arrive at a dead end. You arrive at theosophy. The path through Western philosophy is not a path away from spiritual knowledge. It is a path toward it. But you must be willing to walk the whole way. Half knowledge leads only to confusion. Complete knowledge leads to the spirit. Above the ancient Greek temples was inscribed the phrase, "Know thyself." This is the beginning and the end of all wisdom. For as you come to know your own true nature, you come to know the nature of the world's spirit. You are not an isolated fragment cut off from reality. You are a point where the universal becomes conscious of itself, an ascension from your own spirit to the universal spirit. That is theosophy. That is the path, and it is open to anyone willing to walk it. Rest now in this knowledge. You are not alone in a world of illusions. You are home in a universe made of the very same spirit that thinks through you. Let that truth sink deep as you drift into sleep. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe for more Rudolf Steiner sleep lectures.